Morning, people. Grand grinding. How's everybody doing today? We are going to, since we started this trial, we are going to, we're going to see it through to the verdict, hopefully today. So this morning, what we'll do is for any newcomers, anybody who'd like to get caught up, we will be watching the closing arguments, and then we will go to verdict watch. So Miss Lily, this is for you. Okay, this is all about Miss Lily because she wanted to watch this one. So since we started it, I think they're going to be coming on to answer a jury question here in about they're supposed to start at 9:00 today. So what we're going to do, I'm going to play the closing arguments again. We'll play as much as we can get through until 9 something. We'll pause it, and then we will watch the jury question. So this is what we're doing today, people. Since we started, we will, once the jury asks their question, we'll switch back over to morbid law. But for now, I'm just going to start playing the closing argument. Should we just skip this part where the lady does the 5-minute countdown, y'all? I think I'm going to just skip this. We don't want to just watch this lady for 5 minutes. So I'll fast forward it, okay? So let's jump right into the closing argument. So she's going to stand here. This is how long he was deliberating, according to the prosecutor. Let's see here. Yeah, the closing arguments probably could have been better, but that's just 1 minute. How can I jump forward? Trying to get it like at that sweet spot, but so anybody who's not familiar with this trial, if you just listen to the closing arguments, you'll become more or less familiar with what happened. Basically, this guy here, he's on trial for killing his wife. And he has testified. He was a terrible witness for himself. He actually had to describe the moment he shot his wife in the head twice, which is certainly not something you want anybody to have to do, meaning your client. And this is the prosecutor. She's about to go into her closing argument about why this guy is a murderer and should be locked up.
By this time, Mr. Ferlazzo has a plan. He's made a decision. He has decided that he needs to stop her, that she is not leaving him.
I don't even know. I just know that I sat down and was. Something inside my head, just I remember feeling really warm, and I remember feeling blurry, and I don't know. Something inside me said enough is enough.
Something inside of him said enough is enough. But instead of walking away from Emily, going into his sister's Airbnb, out of the van, instead, he executes his plan. He got up from the couch. He went to the closet. He grabbed this Glock 19 with this silencer. He walked over to the bed. Emily's head was resting on this pillow. He picked up this throw pillow from the couch. He jumped onto the bed. He put this throw pillow over her face, and he shot her once and twice, directly into the left side of her head, killing her. Both of those bullets exited her skull on the right side of her head and came to rest inside the very pillow that her head was laying on.
When you jumped on her, did she say anything to you?
Something like, are you fucking kidding me? You gotta be fucking kidding me.
And then, what was her reaction to you?
It was just like that. Okay. Just jumped on her. She said, are you kidding me? You gotta be fucking kidding me.
Did she try to fight you or anything like that? And how long did you have to take? Was it between when you jumped on her and when you fired the first shot? And how about the second shot? So I don't want to put words in your mouth or anything. I'm just trying to understand. So essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, you jumped on her and bang bang like that. Is that how it happened?
And I think you shook your head no, but when Seth asked you if she tried to put up a fight, did you say yes or no? There was no fight? Okay.
The evidence presented in this trial shows that Emily posed no threat to Mr. Ferlazzo. And in fact, his story that she had a gun was directly contradicted by the fact that both of the pistols were his. Emily did not have a gun. His story that he remembers Emily's body falling after he killed her is directly contradicted by the physical and forensic evidence. Dr. Shapiro told you that her head was resting on something when she was killed. And immediately after killing her, rather than calling 911, any police agency, his ex-wife or his sister, who was just yards away from him, Mr. Ferlazzo instead shuts off Emily's phone because in his words, quote, he wasn't going to use it and she wasn't going to use it. After he shut off her phone, Mr. Ferlazzo puts a Market Basket shopping bag over Emily's head, tied a garbage bag around her neck, used his 6-foot, 200-pound body to carry her 5'1", 130-pound body into the shower. He bagged up this bloody pillow, bagged up this red throw pillow. He bagged up this bloody pillowcase, this bloody sheet. He then put her shoes, her glasses, her wallet, and her phone in a plastic grocery bag, but was careful to keep her ID. He put new sheets, a new blanket, and new pillows on the bed, and he turns his phone back on at 1:35 a.m. Then he turns it off at 2:10 and back on at 3:39 a.m. Then he gets back in the very bed he just killed his wife in. And just a few hours later at 7:48 a.m., while his wife's body is in his shower, he texts his sister, "I can't sleep. Any interest in going for breakfast?" And even makes a recommendation on where to go. Maxie's has really good breakfast, exclamation point. I just French pressed some coffee. Have you had coffee yet? And off they go to Maxie's, where Mr. Ferlazzo has eggs and a mimosa. Then he drives his van from Bolton to St. Albans, parks the van on the property of his best friend. And rather than telling them that Emily's in the van, that he killed her, that he had to kill her, he tells them she took off. And then he sets up shop and starts to give his sister a tattoo. But not before sending Emily's phone a text message. Whatever, exclamation point and angry face. I'm going to spend time with Nikki while I can, exclamation point. Call me. And 3 hours later, he finishes his sister's tattoo. And an hour after that, he goes out to eat again. This time at Twigs, a gastropub in St. Albans. He eats dinner, he has drinks, and he gets a ride back to the Lang residence, and he again sleeps in the van with Emily's body still in the shower. And the next day, he goes out to Burlington with his sister, he gets coffee, and again, he goes out to eat. And again, he says nothing to Nicole about what he did to Emily. And after gallivanting around downtown, he heads back to St. Albans, and on his way, he stops at Hannaford to buy bleach. Because despite him continuing with his life as if nothing has happened, he does have a mess to clean up. That night, he hangs out with friends around a campfire. 2 of his best friends and an off-duty police officer. He engages in small talk. Doesn't mention Emily once. Doesn't even mention that he has a wife, as if she just doesn't exist. You heard testimony that the campfire wraps up around midnight when Mr. Ferlazzo gets back into the van, and while Emily's body lays feet away from him, he sends her phone another text message. The same phone that he turned off after killing her because she wasn't going to need it, and the same phone he threw away somewhere between Bolton and St. Albans. This is far enough! Exclamation point, exclamation point. Get your ass home! Exclamation point. I gotta go back to New Hampshire. Are you coming back? And amongst all of these activities, he decides that he needs to make her body easier to carry, easier to move, and easier to discard. Mr. Ferlazzo uses this serrated saw and dismembers her arms, her legs, her feet, and her head. He dismembers them from her torso. The same torso, absolutely riddled with stab wounds, including one striking her heart. 3 different knives had her DNA on them. At least 3 different knives were used to stab her heart 1 time, her abdomen 8 times, and her back 9 times. Then he puts each piece of her body in garbage bags. And on Monday morning, before leaving for New Hampshire to get his Jeep, which he told you he needed in order to bury Emily's body in the woods, he just can't help himself. Knowing full well exactly where she is and what he has done to her, he texts her phone one last time. You're an asshole. I don't deserve this shit. You're an asshole. I don't deserve this shit. Ms. Adams told you in the state's opening statement that this case and this crime is about ego. Mr. Ferlazzo's ego, and Mr. Ferlazzo's nearly 42-year-old ego being unable to accept his 22-year-old wife disrespecting him. That ego believed it was his right to cheat on Emily, to have relationships with other women, whether she liked it or not. That same ego believed it was his right to follow Emily one day when she wore her hair a different way, and he didn't think she was being truthful to him. That ego was so inflated that even after shooting his wife in the head 2 times, stabbing and dismembering her body, bagging her up, and discarding her like trash, he didn't tell his sister because he didn't want to make a bad impression with her boyfriend. So inflated that he didn't tell his sister because he'd promised not to, quote, dump his drama on her. He considered killing his wife drama. An ego so inflated that after killing her, taking her life because he didn't like the things she was saying to him, because she didn't want to be with him anymore, he calls her an asshole. He tells her that he doesn't deserve this. The state submits that it is Emily, and only Emily, that did not deserve this. All of the credible evidence presented by the state during this trial, the witness statements, the physical evidence, the forensic evidence, was checked and verified. The details of her death, the details of the weekend, of the dismemberment, the trip back to New Hampshire was all corroborated, checked, verified, proven beyond a reasonable doubt. We are confident that you will find that Mr. Ferlazzo killed Emily and that that killing was unlawful. There was no legal justification for it. It was willful. It was intentional, it was deliberate, and it was premeditated. And the state requests that you find him guilty of first-degree murder.
Ms. James.
Thank you, Judge. I do plan to put this propane is in my way. Don't need it. What I say to you now and what Attorney George just said to you is not evidence. We're just giving you our spin on what we hope that you will conclude after your deliberations. It's up to you and only you to decide what the evidence shows. Not what I say, not what she said. You are the finders of fact, not us. There's been some conflicting evidence in this case, some undisputed evidence. You've seen the video of what Mr. Ferlazzo Joseph told the police on the day he was arrested and detained. You know that in that video, and as he told you yesterday, he hadn't slept for multiple days, hadn't eaten. He says multiple times, my mind is scrambled, I'm not thinking clearly. But there is a roughly 2.5 hour recorded statement of what he tells the police happened. One of your jobs is going to be to decide if that was the whole story. If he was able, because of lack of sleep, the events that had transpired over the weekend, prevented him from being clear and rational. You heard him tell you yesterday he has no memory whatsoever of that interview. None. He said it was like watching himself if he'd been at a party and been blackout drunk. He's seen that video 3 times now. He told you yesterday that he was revolted by his apparent detachment in describing the events of what happened over that weekend. And you saw him on multiple occasions express emotion in talking and thinking and remembering what happened. The detachment that he described, his demeanor, is part of his habitual. He said he was a closed person, very private, didn't like to express his feelings. And it's something he learned from childhood, something he learned in the course of his work as a tattoo artist, how to compartmentalize feelings, emotions. He told you as a tattoo artist, he'd learned that because it hurts, you make small talk with people and distract them from the pain that they're experiencing. This is just a habit for him. It comes across, as he described, as revolting detachment, but it's his way of coping. What he told you yesterday is not what he told the police. He explained to you that his memory of what happened ended at some point that weekend. He remembers the events now. He remembers the events leading up to him shooting Emily. He remembers some of the events of Saturday, what he did. He doesn't remember much, if anything, of Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. He told you that after he had had an opportunity to sleep for a couple of days, he came to and he started having nightmares and remembering things, bits and pieces. And even as he talked to you yesterday, he said his memory is fragmented, very fragmented. And he is struggling to understand what happened and why. What he told you yesterday is that over the course of their relationship, Emily had become physically abusive to him. The reasons the state would have you believe is that the state would have you believe that he's an egomaniac. It's up to you to decide if you saw any evidence of that in his demeanor or his testimony yesterday, that he shot her because she disrespected him. He told you clearly about how many times she had hit him with objects, with cell phone, with her fists, with a laptop, with a wine bottle, gave him a black eye once. And he never hit her back. He said, I would take her arms and restrain her. Until she calmed down and say, we don't hit, we don't hit. They even went to a counselor together to address issues in their relationship. He said, I grew up with domestic violence and I didn't want to bring a child into a relationship like that. That was his experience of interacting with Emily when she became frustrated and acted out physically against him. He told you that that weekend they were coming up here to see his sister and to celebrate their anniversary. They got here, they were both happy to be coming, both excited, and on a dime, she flipped. I won't be here. F you, F your family. I'm done. He's not denying that he sent texts to his sister. He's not denying much of what the state's evidence shows. He knows that and told you, yeah, I lied. I lied because I didn't want to I didn't want to tell my sister because you may or may not agree with his explanation. She didn't want his drama in her life. You heard the state say killing his wife was drama. Well, you have to put yourself in his shoes and his thinking. But in any case, that was his explanation for why he didn't tell Nikki about what he had done. That is shoot.
Y'all, I'm sorry, but I have to comment. This is the least convincing defense attorney that's serious. Okay, she's not a parody of herself. She's not a caricature of herself. This lady, in this instance, is the least convincing person that could possibly exist, unless we wanted to just go full clown mode. Like, yo, you just like, as a serious person, she's the least serious possible. I mean, I can't believe how like nonchalant, and she needs to be passionate. She needs to be putting some emotion into this. She needs to be convincing these people, because she has a very tall order on her hands. She has to convince them that this guy shot his wife in self-defense, stabbed her 30 times, cut her body up, put her body in trash bags, sent text to her phone, went and ate with his sister while she was dead, gave his sister a tattoo while she was dead. And she has to convince the jury all of that. And she's just nonchalant with it, people. Like, she literally has the tallest order of tall orders. And she's just like, hey, you can believe and you can see that for yourself. It's like, come on. Like, at least lay it all on the line. You know what I'm saying? Lay it all on the line. You know you're going to lose, but at least lay it all on the line. Let me see what you got. Anyway, end of rant.
His wife in bed. So that weekend they come up, they get into an argument. He told you clearly that she had been muttering and angry, and when he put on the candles, she was angry about that, and she picked up one of the candles and started hitting him. Hit him in the head, hit him in the arms, hit him in the torso, kicked him in the groin. He was able to stop that attack. He took the candle away from her, and then he took their dog out, Remy.
One other thing, y'all, sorry for pausing again, but listen, you know how you know that his goose is cooked? Because nobody, at least in our chat and myself, I don't doubt that his wife might have hit him or hit him with a candle or kicked him or whatever. I don't know that she did. I don't know if she didn't. But what they have provided is so inconsequential when you're talking about a shooting her in self-defense, that they haven't even provided anything at all to say that she was ever a real threat to him. They have provided testimony that she would get angry with him, that she would punch him, she would kick him, she would hit him with something, but it never rose to the level from the testimony of anything that was life-threatening or even health-threatening, So why are they even talking about her anger problems or her violence problems if the extent of it is, pretty relatively low level outbursts when you're going to talk about you shot somebody? You know what I'm saying? So it's like they needed to do a lot more with getting testimony and getting evidence that she was able to kill him, that she was capable of doing him either serious bodily harm or killing him. And they didn't even get close. Yeah, he's a pretty big guy. She was a relatively small woman, That's one thing, but did she ever stab him? Did she ever shoot at him? Did she ever pull a gun on him? If there had been some testimony about that kind of thing, oh yeah, she stabbed me with a butcher knife through my hand. Or, when I woke up one day, she had a knife to my throat. Or she shot at me and missed. Like, these would be the sorts of things that, as a juror, I could start saying, okay, you're moving me toward a self-defense thing here. but she hit me with a candle. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the best you have. She hit you with a candle one time. So my point is you needed to move me significantly toward some real bodily harm or the threat of real bodily harm. If you want me to buy this self-defense thing, you can't just give me the, kind of, I'm not going to say standard, but we've all been in relationships. Y'all know how relationships are. So they didn't even get close to like serious bodily harm. Air Hall says with a 3-wick candle. so again, if he woke up and she was bashing him in the head with a candle, like a big candle, okay, I mean, you're getting me there. It's not going to kill you probably, but that could do serious bodily harm. But they didn't give any kind of testimony, particularly from him, that there was ever a real threat from her. So then all of a sudden, the night of the murder, she just grabs a gun and like, I'm going to end your life. There was nothing that he said that would have indicated she was capable of that, because hitting, punching, kicking, scratching, throwing something at you, that's one level of violence. It's not acceptable, but it does happen. But pulling a gun on you and gonna shoot you, that's not even in the same universe as what he testified to. So the reason I'm saying this is because, again, he has a self-defense. His defense is self-defense. So as a juror, he needs to move me a long way past, I hate to call it this, but typical relationship push and pull. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that that's the way relationships should be, but that's how they are. So, and it's typical. What he described is like some typical stuff. He didn't describe any kind of deadly stuff that happened from her to him.
It was raining. They went out for a walk. He had also told you earlier that he thought he saw coyotes and was afraid potentially about bears. And that's why he told her, get your Taurus and keep your peace with you. And he kept his Glock with him. There's no dispute that the guns were his. That doesn't mean she didn't use it. He said she preferred the Taurus because the barrel was shorter, or the handle. He used the Glock. That was hers, that was his. Legal ownership is not the issue. So they both had access to their guns that night. He comes back in from walking the dog. She's on the bed, scrolling through her phone, muttering. And he pours himself a drink, one of many that he had that night, many. Vodka and Red Bull. At some point, so he dries the dog off, dries himself off, and at some point decides, okay, now I'm going to get into bed. In order to do that, he has to climb across Emily. Emily says something, fuck you, something like that. He picks up the red pillow, which was right on the little couch they had next to the bed, and this pillow, swats her in the head with it. She turns to him and says, that's it, you're dead. That's it, you're dead. She elbows him in the groin. I had that backwards. First, she elbowed him in the groin. Then he picked up the pillow and swatted her. Then he saw, and she said, that's it, you're dead. He saw her start to pick up the gun and shoot him. And you heard him tell you, I was terrified. I knew she was going to shoot me. That was his belief based on circumstances of that evening, what she said to him, the history of their relationship. He truly believed that she was going to shoot him and that he had to shoot her with the Glock that was already in his hand in order to save his own life. That's what he told you yesterday. It's not what he told the police, but that's what he now remembers happening. He also told you, I felt a wave. This he did tell the police. I felt a wave come over me. I was hot. I couldn't take it anymore. I felt blurry, loss of focus. All of that contributed to his decision, and it was a decision to shoot her. Then what? Then what happens? Well, he has some memory of sitting beside her body. He's told you a couple of times.
Y'all have to understand, this guy is getting into bed. He's getting into bed, y'all, with a gun. He's gonna go to sleep with a gun. And if I'm not mistaken, y'all, didn't his gun have a silencer on it, or a suppressor, whatever you call it? Y'all, please correct me if I'm wrong. He's getting into bed to go to sleep with a gun, y'all, that has a suppressor or silencer on it. And I mean, who gets into bed with a gun, y'all? I mean, who gets into bed with a gun in their hand? Come on.
I was talking to her at various points over the next couple of days. This is a man who was somewhat, if not heavily intoxicated, also smoking marijuana, just experienced a trauma, and is grasping, what do I do now? What do I do? When he talked to you about this, you saw him break down and become emotional and cry. This is not someone who is a cold-blooded murderer. He cared about his wife. You heard him describe their early relationship as euphoric and magnetic. He was in love with her. He kept telling her, this is not how we treat each other. You don't hit people. But on this night, he truly believed that she was going to shoot him. And that's why he shot her. So over the course of the rest of that night and into Saturday, he made attempts to prevent anyone knowing what had happened to Emily. He doesn't deny sending some of those texts. Some of them he doesn't remember. Some of them he does. And he told you, I lied. I know I lied from what he can remember. He was intending to try and go back to Pennsylvania to help his grandmother. You can decide whether or not you think that was a good enough reason for what he did, but that was how he was thinking at the time. He also said, I wanted to give her a burial. He has no recollection of stabbing her. None. None.
He stabbed this lady. So he dismembered. I mean, some of y'all have heard this already, but for anybody who's just tuning in, he dismembered her body, which that's after she's dead. So you can maybe use that as a juror to try to determine, was this all a plan the whole time? But he dismembered her body. But you understand that, right? Like, you're gonna try to hide the body, you're gonna try to bury it. It's hard to move around. I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying a reasonable person could say, well, if you're trying to hide that you killed somebody, you dismember their body. It makes sense. It's not good, it's not okay, but it does make logical sense that you would try to move it in pieces as opposed to the whole thing. What doesn't make sense to me is, why did he stab her 30 times? Because he stabbed her in the back and in the heart. Like, that's not even to try to dismember the body. Like, what the heck is that all about? Why did he stab her 30 times? Because the stabbing couldn't have been to try to dismember the body, because he stabbed her in the torso. So, you're not going to cut the torso open or cut it up. I wouldn't think so. Something was totally disconnected in this guy's mind or brain where, I mean, I can't even identify with some of this stuff. Like my brain can't even go there. I can't. The dismembering, again, I'm not justifying it, but I get it. I do get it. You're trying to hide what you did. But the stabbing of somebody, presumably once they've already been dead, and you stab them 30 times, you know, he did say he blamed her for what happened, though. He said he blamed her. So I don't know. Air Hall says it's pure hate. And I mean, that's the only thing I can think, because what the heck is that all about?
The medical examiner told you there's no way of knowing when those injuries were inflicted, except that they were not immediately following death. Similar to the dismemberment, they also were not immediately following her death. This is not an easy case because on the one hand, you have verifiable evidence of what happened. But what you don't have is the why. Mr. Ferlazzo gave you the why yesterday. He explained why he did what he did. Your biggest job is going to be to decide, is he lying now just to get away with it? Is what he told the police in that interview the whole truth? He told you he has only partial memory of the events that followed, and he admits, I shot her. He knows, he's admitting that. That's not what this case is about. This case is about why did he shoot her?
This lady is no
Ego?
good, y'all. She's not good for this kind of case. I'm going to tell you why. What she needs to be doing is a few things. She needs to be drilling it home to the jury that their job is not to judge him based on what he did after shooting her, after shooting his wife, but their job is to judge him for everything up to the shooting, because this is a murder case. So everything that happened after is not the point. All the text. So she might want to offer an explanation for that stuff, but she also needs to be getting the jury's mind set on everything that happened after the murder is after the murder, but this is a murder case. So we need to decide this based on what happened up to the moment of the murder. Again, what happened after may give you some indication as to his state of mind. You know, was it a plan and so on and so forth? But she needs to focus them on that. She needs more emotion. If she wants to say he was afraid for his life, she needs to be emotional. Not, you know, he was afraid, you know, like he said he was afraid for his life. It's like, you need to bring some emotion to this. And by the way, y'all, I know that court's starting at 9. I do have it here. Once they go to the judge who's going to play part of the testimony, we'll go to the court. Okay. So they're not in session yet. So this lady, unfortunately, this does not seem like the type of case where she should be representing him, because you need somebody who can paint a picture, somebody who can engage the jurors' emotions, who can get them to see a possibility outside of what most of us would just common sense assume is that he just either spontaneously went crazy and killed her, which is second-degree murder, or that he had some kind of plot or plan, whether it had been for 30 seconds, 3 days, or 3 months, that he was going to take her out, which would be first-degree murder. You need somebody who can give you enough, who can make you emotionally understand there's something else, there's another possibility. And this lady is just, she's not doing it. She's not doing it. She's not doing it. And I believe he's going to be convicted today, probably today. It's not her fault, but she's not helping at all, you know?
Ego, or someone who had been pushed to the point where they could no longer tolerate being hit. And I know, he's big, a man, 20 years older. She was a little girl. You heard him tell you that she hit him and hurt him each time. She hit him with a bottle, hit him in the head with a wine bottle, hit him in the head with a big Yankee Candle. That hurts. You can do that however small, or the discrepancy in your size. And he didn't hit her back. Not once.
She just called her a little girl. She just called the victim a little girl when trying to describe I'm Monday morning quarterbacking her, so it's easy for me to criticize. I don't have to do her job, and thank goodness, but she was a little girl. Like, this is the person who she's trying to justify that her client shot in the head while she was in the bed. A little girl. Like, what? Yeah,
The judge is
exactly.
going to instruct you on the rules of the law in this case. And it's not my job to do that. Your job is to assess what you heard him say yesterday, how he appeared, what you think about whether he's lying or not. That's your job. I don't envy you because I think it's a hard job. But that's what you will be asked to do. What do you believe is the truth? What he told you yesterday or what he said to the police? I think that you will find him not guilty of first-degree murder and acquit him on the grounds of self-defense. Thank you.
I actually want to boo her. I want to give this lady a boo, like boo. I need some sound effects. And I feel a little bad about that because she has a tough job. This is her job, and there really is almost no good way of doing it. But there's a better and a worse way of doing it. And she's doing it like within what she could do, she's doing it worse than she could. That was just PISS poor. Sorry for my profanity, y'all, but that was not good. It's her job to represent this guy. We don't necessarily want her to get him off, but like, represent the man, even though he's going to go down either way, but like, at least show up for him, because that's what our legal system demands.
Ms. George, do you have a final summation?
Air Hall says language, sir. Oh my gosh. Morning, Shirley. I don't believe his lawyer believes him, y'all. At the end of the day, I don't think she believes him.
Mr. Ferlazzo claims that he doesn't remember what he told police, that he doesn't remember being in the interview with police.
All right, y'all. Court is back in session, so we're going to go to court. So this is live now. They haven't turned on the... Okay, here we go. This is live. So we are now in today. Okay, so we just moved to... There's a jury question. They want to hear some of his testimony back, so y'all will get to hear that. So we just shot to
Hearing the matter of
live.
State versus Joseph Ferlazzo, Jr., 21 CR 8967, morning of December 13th to resume jury deliberations. Mr. Filazzo is present with his attorneys, Ms. Jantz and Ms. Johnson, and the state is present through Ms. George and Ms. Adams. The jury had a note last night. We've identified about a 49-minute segment from 118 to 209. I think it was around there. That seems to respond to the request. So if there's nothing further, we'll bring in the jury and play it. Will it be loud enough for everybody to hear? Please be seated. Good morning to everyone. We'll note all 12 members of the jury are present. We'll just ask the basic questions. Anybody discuss this case since our completion of deliberations, or your completion of deliberations yesterday till this morning? Did you discuss this case with anyone else? Did you learn anything new about the case? I'm seeing both answers, shaking the head no to all these answers. If anyone has learned anything new or talked about it, please raise your hand. Seeing nothing. Okay, we're now ready. Ms. Reno, we're propped to do the read back. It's about 49 minutes in length, and if that's what the jury wants, we'll start now.
She greeted them, introduced herself, and then she sort of just sat quietly on the edge of the bed, not really engaging in any kind of conversation.
You and your sister, you talked.
Yeah, we were just catching up on sort of current events, what was new with her, how it was great to see her. And then the introduction of Ariel, I never met him before, so just trying to get a little backstory on how those two got together.
So I think you said, I don't remember what you said. How long was she in the camper?
I would estimate a half an hour.
And what happened after that?
She invited us to come to their Airbnb, and then she left Rosie and went into her unit.
And what did you do after that? After Nikki left?
After Nikki left, I made another drink, had some more to smoke, questioned Emily on if she wanted to join. There was Nicole had said that they were going to watch Netflix, so that was like that was one of the options. I think she also said like there were some board games or something like that in the unit, so we could play cards or board games or watch Netflix and just hang out. So
Okay.
I asked Emily if she was interested in just going and having a kickback with Nikki and Ariel, and she said no.
So she didn't go with you?
No, she said she did not want to go in.
So you went into Nikki's Airbnb?
No, I did not. I told her that I wanted to go in because we came to spend time, and it started an argument, and there was a time where we were talking about she had made a new acquaintance in Vermont, and
Are you talking about the conversation you had?
yes, this is a conversation with Emily.
This is after Nikki left.
Yes, Nikki left, and I invited Emily. I was like, let's go hang out with them, and she said, I don't know if I want to. She said, I don't know if I want to. She's like, this is pathetic. This is not what I want to be doing. I want to go. She had met someone, and she told me about using.
I also don't know about this.
Yeah. Okay.
So the conversation you had, did it lead to an argument?
Yeah, there was an argument because she wanted to go hang out with her friends, and I told her that she came on the trip, and she told me prior, earlier that day, she said she was here to meet my family, to hang out. So I was very confused, well, now you say you want to leave, but we just got here. So,
So what did you do next?
Well, I told her I was going to go, and then there was, she started saying some very hurtful things and some very threatening things if I was to go and leave her to her solitary. So yeah, that was the next thing that confused me, was why are we getting threats all of a sudden?
Do you have any idea about what time of night this was?
This could have been somewhere, I'm going to estimate around 9 p.m.
So what did you do after that?
Well, I told her if you want to go, then go. I don't want you to be unhappy. If you don't want to be here, then don't be here. But up until now, like you said, you wanted to. So, I just need a moment. Well, what happened is I ended up staying in the bus with her.
What was she doing?
Well, she was having a fit, really. She was cussing and saying how shitty it was and how shitty I was for not giving her money to go have an Uber and like leave the vacation. And
And what were you doing?
I was on vacation, so I made another drink and I had some more to smoke. And
And just to clarify, you were drinking vodka and Red Bull?
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I remember dancing. I think I put some music on and I was just dancing with Remington. Yeah, just trying to enjoy the moment. Really, that's what I remember doing.
And what happened?
Well, just need a second. So at some point, I remember she had grabbed her device, her phone, and I think she was just like scrolling.
Scrolling?
Yeah, I think she was just like scrolling around. I'm not sure what exactly sites or what apps she was using. So, but yeah, I was just doing what I came there to do. I was just enjoying the scenery, like watch the sun go down. Spend some time with Remington. I kept asking her, like, if you want to talk at all, like, please talk to me. Like, there was pages and pages that he wrote, so it sounds like we should talk. She didn't.
And then what happened?
Well, there was points where I would take Remington out to to do go potty or do a business, and
Let me interrupt you.
yeah.
Was it dark by this time?
Yeah, it started to get dark. That's what I was remembering, that it was starting to get dark, and I was getting concerned about taking Remy out. So I did like a rearrangement of the firearms, because I started carrying the Glock outside. It has tritium sights on it, so you can see in the dark. And that was I had seen some what I believe to be coyote. I like shone a flashlight and I saw a couple sets of eyes in the dark. So Remington's a pretty small dog, and I just wanted to be able to protect her. So
So the Glock is a gun that you typically carry.
I don't typically carry that gun unless, I take it hunting, but it's not like a concealed carry. I will open carry it, in a situation similar to what I just described, where I'm just taking the dog out, to do her business. We were up on the top of the mountain, so, I actually used to live there, so I've seen, bobcats, mountain lions, fox, coyote, and they're brazen. Like, I remember carrying groceries up those steps and actually having a coyote like confront me. So, I just wanted to be able to protect Remington.
So let me ask you, did you purchase that Glock?
Yes, I did.
Did it have a silencer when you purchased it?
When I purchased it, it had a threaded barrel, to equip a silencer. I ordered the silencer the day that I purchased it, and it came in weeks later.
Okay, and there were other firearms that were found in the camper. Were
Yes.
they all registered to you?
Yes, I think there were 6 firearms. Yes, there were 6 firearms, in Rosie.
And prior to knowing you, do you know whether or not Emily had any experience with firearms?
She might have had some experience, but when her and I started going target shooting, it seemed like she was still fairly novice.
And it was mentioned in testimony earlier that a Taurus was found in the camper.
Yeah, there's a Taurus 9mm pistol,
Was that Emily's gun?
and that was the gun that she liked to use the most because it has a small grip.
Okay. So I interrupted you. You said you took Remy out and saw what you thought might have been coyotes, and you came back into the camper.
Yeah.
What did you do or say then?
Well, I came back in and I put the Glock in the sock bin, and
Where's the sock bin in relation to the bed?
the sock bin is like in we'll call it a closet. But it's
So
just
is
like
that at the foot of the bed?
it's at the foot of the bed. It's like an opening where there's like a rod for hanging some clothing, and there's bins for like socks and underwear. So I set it in there.
Did you put the silencer on it at that time?
It had the silencer on it I guess the last time that I cleaned it, which was months prior. I don't remember the last time the silencer was off of it.
And did you say anything at all to Emily about the
I
coyote?
did. I said, "Oh my God, I saw 2, and that means like if you see 2, there's like a whole pack." So I was like, "Yeah, like they're probably looking at Remington like she's a small dog." So I was like, "I bet they're like thinking she's like a snack." I was like, "Not today."
Did you say anything to her about you arming herself with the Taurus?
Oh, yeah. At one point when I went out, I took Remy out for a little stroll, and I said, "You got the Taurus. I'm taking the Glock." So she had access to that. She also had access to the shotgun, which was still out at the time, but she didn't favor its large. She favored the smaller pistol.
Okay, so going back chronologically, you come back in after seeing the coyotes. You talk about her taking the Taurus. You get the Glock and put it. Where do you put it?
I put it in the sock bin. It was at the base of the bed, and like the opening of what would be like a closet space.
What did you do then?
Same kind of thing, just continued to have some drinks, and it started getting dark, so I lit some candles, lit some incense. Yeah, just kind of I did what I like to call, like aisle yoga. So there's like a, not a very wide aisle that runs down the middle of the bus. So I was just doing some, like, it's like half yoga, half dancing. I had some music on. I was just stretching and, enjoying myself.
And what was Emily doing?
She was, scrolling away on her phone, on her device.
Was she on the bed?
Yes.
Was she talking to you at all?
She was sitting on the bed. No, not much. Didn't really show a whole lot of interest in what was going on outside. Just sort of like looked up from her device, like when I talked to her, and then just sort of.
Okay. So she's sitting on the bed scrolling, you're doing your yoga, dancing and drinking,
Yes.
and you had lit some candles and incense. What happened next?
There was. There was a point where Emily went from she was sitting up kind of like cross-legged, and then she went to like laying on her side, still just like scrolling away, just looking at her device, and then at one point she lashed out and started cursing at me about the candles being lit.
What did she do, if anything?
Well, she was, she was cursing. I don't know. It wasn't really, in my opinion, it wasn't really bright, but she was cursing.
I mean, the lighting wasn't overly bright.
Right. I didn't turn any of the, we had like battery powered LED lights, and none of those were on. It was just candlelight. So.
Let me interrupt you there, just to ask you about, there's been testimony that Emily's phone was powered off and so was yours at some point that evening. Why was that?
We turned our phones off to conserve battery life because we didn't have the ability to plug in.
Okay,
So
that's why.
yeah.
All right, so you didn't think it was overly bright in the camper?
No, I didn't think it was overly bright. I think there might have been 5 to 7 candles lit.
How
So
many?
5 to 7 candles lit.
Okay, of varying sizes?
All the candles were about the same size, like a large.
Like a Yankee candle?
Candle. Yeah.
Like, so you're
Yeah, gesturing.
about,
Whatever.
to me, it looks like about,
7, 8
how many,
inches.
you're saying about 7 or 8 inches tall?
Yes.
And what's the diameter?
Possibly like a 4-inch diameter.
Okay, so 7 or 8 of those large candles.
Right. Yeah.
And what happened?
After her telling me to turn the fucking candles off, and I said it's not that bright, like you could always just roll over. She got up and ran at me and grabbed one of the candles, and it was like all I could do to like grab the lid of it and like put it on top of it, and she like pulled it away and started swinging it at me and hitting me with it.
Where?
She hit me in like my neck and head, and in my arms. I was like blocking. I think she might have like hit me in the chest. But I like wrestled the candle away from her, like put it back on the counter, and then there was like a flurry of punches and kicks. That she started punching and kicking me, and
Where?
in my shoulders and arms, my forearms,
Closed fist.
Yeah, closed fist, trying to punch my face. And I had to restrain her. I had to like physically grab her by her arms and like hold her arms down. And she kept kicking. She actually kicked Remy. And I like sort of turned myself sideways and I like pushed her back to the side of the bed. And I told her that, you know, that we're not your punching bags. And
You said what?
I told her that we weren't her punching bags.
We weren't.
She kicked Remy, and she was kicking me and punching me, and I pushed her back, and I told Remy, I was like, "Yo, we're gonna take a walk."
So you know I've asked you this question before. When she hit you with the candle, did it hurt you?
Yeah, I don't know what that thing weighs. Probably like 2 pounds or something. It's a heavy candle, and it did hurt.
And after you took the candle from her, you just told us that she continued to hit you and
Yes.
kick you. And
Yes.
did that hurt?
Yes, she hits hard.
And then you restrained her arms and pushed her to the side of the bed.
It did. I held her arms down, and I like turned my hip sideways. She kicked me in the groin, so I was not trying to have that happen again. So I turned sideways and sort of like just sidestepped and like pushed her back. And I said, "All right, like, you know, we're not your punching bags here. Like, I'm like, no more hitting." And I said, "You're gonna stay on your side. I'm gonna stay on my side." And then I like, you know, I looked at Remy and I was like, "You know what? Let's just go outside." And so I grabbed a couple things. I grabbed the Glock, I grabbed Remy's leash, and leashed Remy up, and we went outside. And
And when you went outside, what was Emily doing?
I don't know. I told her.
Let me rephrase that question. You said you pushed her to the side of the bed and told her what you've already
Yes.
described to
I
us.
said, "You stay on your side," and I'll
What
say,
did she do anything after that?
"I don't know." I went outside.
Did she stay on the bed? When you left, was she on the bed?
She was like leaning against the bed when I left, and I grabbed my stuff, took off outside, and on the way out, I said, "You know what? Like, just wherever you want. Like, just be wherever you want. Like, I'm stepping out." Yeah, Remington and I stepped outside, and you know, she. When I say she, I'm talking about Remington. Went and, you know, did her business. So when I came back inside after letting Remy out, Emily was on the bed, and
What did you do? Well, I believe you told us earlier it had been raining.
yes, it was actually, yes. It was raining outside, so when I came back in, Remington and I were wet, so I grabbed a towel and dried Remy off and dried myself off. And I came back in,
Where
and
was Emily?
she was on the bed. I think she was like scrolling on her phone. And
So what did you do?
I made a drink. I came in, I put my stuff down, and I came in, made myself a drink, and had some more smoke. I asked her if she was up for talking about why exactly she had a fit about the candlelight. And I don't know what she was saying. She was saying something, but it was just like she was just like muttering, so I couldn't really hear what she was saying.
Okay, then what happened?
at some point there was, I just need a minute. Yeah, there was yeah, there was some muttering from her, and then I don't.
After there was muttering from her, what do you remember doing next? You.
Some time had passed. I think there was like another drink involved. And then at some point, I had decided to go climb in bed, and
just to be clear, your side of the bed is at the back of the bus, correct?
right, yes, it is.
So in order to get to your side of the bed,
Yeah,
what did you have to do?
there's
What did you have to do?
yeah to get into the bed. So to give you an idea, like the bed it's very high. There's a lot of storage, and then there's a mattress, and then she was laying on top of it, so it was very high. So you have to climb onto the couch and then across her side of the bed to get into my side of the bed.
So did you say that you decided to try and get into bed?
Yeah, I decided to get into bed.
And did you take the Glock with you?
Yeah, I drained my drink, and I grabbed the Glock off the counter, and
What was Emily doing?
she was laying in bed.
And where, if you know, was the Taurus?
The Taurus was under her pillow.
How do you know that?
That's where it was the last time that I had saw it,
When was that?
earlier that day.
Okay. That evening or that day?
That day,
Okay,
yeah, it was there all day.
okay, so you take the Glock
Yes,
that already has the silencer on it, correct?
yeah, it had a suppressor on it.
And what do?
I climb into bed, and as I'm climbing across Emily, her mutters turned into shouts, and you have to climb over the person to get to, like, if this is my spot and this is her spot, this would be her. Like, you have to climb over her to get to here. So I was climbing over her, and she shouted, "Fuck off!" And she threw an elbow at me, and elbowed me in my groin.
Did that hurt?
Yeah, it hurt. It was right to my genitals.
Did you say anything when she said fuck off?
I didn't say anything when she said "fuck off." I got hit in the groin, and I said, "No more hitting." And so we had a bunch of throw pillows that we lined around the bed, the top of the bed where we slept. So one of the throw pillows was right there, and I swatted her with the throw pillow, and I said, "Stop hitting." And that's when it happened.
This is it, y'all.
What happened?
This is the part.
She said, "That's it, you're dead." And she put her arm under her pillow, and she pulls her hand down with the Taurus. And
How are you feeling?
I was feeling horrified, just
Were
like
you afraid?
I was terrified. Like there was as soon as I saw that, like I just felt like this like wave of heat, like just like red hot, and she started like pushing her body up in an instant, and I'm like, no, 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 and like I don't know, like I don't know, like she wasn't stopping, and I was holding my Glock, and she started just like coming up at me, and I just fired.
Why?
She was gonna shoot me.
And you were afraid.
Very.
You fired twice.
That's
Do you
right.
remember firing twice?
All I remember is like feeling like three things. It was like I felt like it was like boom, 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 and it was like 2 shots, and then her body like dropping.
That's what you remember.
That's what I felt. Yeah.
That's what you saw.
Yes.
But I asked you what you felt.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 I felt just horrified. And yeah, it was terrible.
Well, did you shoot her because you were angry?
No. 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 No, yeah, it was like she wasn't gonna stop, and like that was the only way. Like it didn't didn't have to be like that. Like
I'm giving my witness time to recover. He's having some difficulty. Okay, so are you ready to continue?
maybe just a moment.
So, Joseph. Okay. What happened after you shot her?
I yelled at her, like, I said, "Are you fucking kidding?" And like, why the hell would you do that?
Did you know she was dead?
I picked her up.
Okay. You picked up her body, then what did you do? You've already told us that you were yelling at her.
Yes.
What did you do?
I shook her.
You shook her?
Yeah.
Why?
well, I wasn't sure if she was dead. And she just fell lifeless, and she was gone. Like,
Okay. What did you do after you shook her? It confirmed in your mind that she was dead. Is that what you're telling us?
yes.
And what did you do? I threw the pistol on the couch. I grabbed the other pistol. I threw that on the couch. Let me back you up. What pistols are you talking about?
There's a Glock pistol and a Taurus pistol.
So the Glock is yours, and that's the one you used to shoot her, is that right?
That's correct.
And the Taurus was hers.
That's correct.
And they were both on the bed? Is that what you said?
Yes.
What did you do with them?
I threw them off the bed onto the couch.
Did you remove the silencer from the Glock?
No.
Okay, so you threw the two guns onto the couch.
Yes.
Then what did you do?
I slid off the couch and I slid off the bed, and I was like, I remember like touching her hair and touching her back and talking to her. And I was.
Did you have anything more to drink?
Later on, I had some more to drink. Yes.
So what you're telling us is you sat beside her body for some period of time?
Yes. Yes. For some time, I sat.
So wait.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Yes, I've been told. So what did you? Oh, okay, sorry. Well, we're just setting some foundational things, Judge.
I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time.
So
Where?
without my putting words into your mouth, what did you do next?
I sat with her body, and I touched her hair. I touched her back, and I talked to her. And
Do you have any idea what time of day or night this might have been?
this was probably after 2 a.m., which would be Saturday morning.
And what did you do then?
At some point, I lifted her up again, and I was inspecting her, and I just saw like a lot of blood like coming out of her head, and I was like, oh my god, like, so I went and I had some plastic bags, so I went and opened a plastic bag, and I put it under her head so she would. I didn't know how much blood was going to come out, so it was like a catchment, and I sat there for some time, just like maybe like 10 or 15 minutes, just like sitting there. And there was so at some point after that, I think I like slid off the couch onto the floor, and I called out for Remington, and she has like a small doghouse underneath one of the couches, so I checked on her, and I sat with her, and at some point I grabbed the vodka and continued drinking.
Let me stop you
Okay.
and ask you. You're testifying today about what you remember. When did these memories come to you?
My memories, came to me sometime after the event. I was detained by the police, and I was put into a cell, and I want to say it was like at some point, maybe like I'm estimating, like a week or 2 weeks, probably closer to 2 weeks later, after being in the cell. I don't know, like I had an experience. I know this is going to sound strange, but I had an experience. I don't know if anyone's ever really been on a merry-go-round, where you're on it and everything's just spinning. But that's what I was experiencing. It just felt like everything was spinning, and then the ride finally came to like a stop, and then there was like a bit of clarity where like there wasn't as much like distortion.
So what you're telling us today about what you did after you shot Emily, are those memories that came back to you later on?
Judge, another leading question.
When did those, what you just told us it was a couple of.
Yeah, it was a couple of weeks. I was having flashbacks. I finally started to. I felt very separated. And what I mean by that is like I feel like my mind and my body were on two different planets, and I finally like rested and started to like feel clearer about things, and I was trying to understand what happened, and trying to put the pieces back together, and
So let's continue with what you remember happening, and we're in the early hours of Saturday morning, right?
Yeah.
What do you remember next?
Early Saturday morning, I sat with Remy, and we mourned together, and we were just like so scared and confused, and I remember drinking from the bottle, and then I remember the sun coming up, and I remember the sun coming up, and then at some point I made the call to get some coffee together.
So you remember making coffee?
Yep. I remember it being sun up, and I remember making some coffee. I had a French press and some coffee grounds and made some coffee. And took Remington out. Drank some coffee, and then it was just, I don't know, like I was just like, I was really shook. So I just, I was having a hard time focusing, you know. I just remember like my mind was like working in loop or something. Like I just kept seeing it happen over and over. It was terrible.
Are you telling us that you saw yourself shooting Emily?
No.
Right into the judge rules.
Oh, sorry. No, I just remember, like the sensation of like her body dropping, and I remember like picking her up and her just like falling, just lifeless.
And that's what you remembered?
Yeah.
You were, I think you said, over and over.
Yeah, like intermittently just interrupting everything.
What, if anything, do you remember doing on Saturday?
On Saturday, I reached out to my sister. I was reaching out to see if she was awake, if she had her morning coffee yet, to see what her plans were for the day. And I don't know if she asked me or if I asked her about eating, because the next thing that I remember is we went to eat some breakfast.
You remember that?
I have like a couple flashes of like getting in her car, somebody's car, Ariel's car, I don't know whose car. I remember getting in their car. I remember like being at the restaurant. I don't really remember specifics.
Do you remember telling her anything about where Emily was?
Yeah, yes, okay, yeah, I do remember she asked, is Emily joining us? And I lied and told her that Emily was still sleeping.
Why did you lie?
We talked about how their trip was for their vacation, and that she didn't want us to bring our drama to their vacation. So I didn't want to dump that on her.
So your testimony is that you didn't tell her that you shot Emily because you were honoring her request not to bring drama?
Yes. Yes, I didn't want to bring the drama to her vacation.
Okay. What else did you do on Saturday that you can now remember?
I think we're now at the place that the jury asked us to stop. We all set for now? Why don't you continue your deliberations?
All right.
So it appears the mics at council table and that the court weren't really working, which I'm just finding out about now. Hopefully, if they're louder, they'll be able to be heard, but I don't know what that was about. In any event, we'll see if they have any other questions or how deliberations go. Anything further to address? Okay, thank you, folks.
Y'all, look how chill the security is in this place. Their security is chill as I don't know what. All right, y'all. Morning. Good morning, 504. My morning, everybody. So, y'all, I'm putting the link to Morbid Law. I'm going to be ending the stream here on PIW. If anybody's on Morbid Law, you don't have to do anything. So we're going to go right over there. Again, I'm ending the PIW stream. If you're on PIW paralegal stream, please go over to Morbid Law. We're going to be just leaving it open there until we get a verdict. This is the wedding anniversary murder trial, and it is quite gruesome, heartbreaking. You really don't get much worse than this, honestly. I mean, this is a solid 9 out of 10 in the, I mean, should I even be saying this? But just when you just think about how cold-blooded somebody could be, this is up there. This is way up there. This is way up there. So anyway, go over to Morbid Law. I'm gonna put it in one more time, y'all, and I'm gonna be ending the stream on PIW. Thank y'all, and we will see you all on the other side. All right, y'all. So now we're just on Morbid Law at this point. So what do y'all want to do? I imagine the jury is going to. I feel like they're probably debating between first degree and second degree murder. I think you could probably make a case for either. I think, of course, you want him to get the harshest penalty possible, but there may be some people there who are just not convinced that this was a plan. You know, it could be. The only thing for me is, why are you getting into bed with your gun, though? Like, why are you sleeping with your gun? You can tell me there are bears outside. If you were in a tent, I could probably rock with you on sleeping with your gun. Like, if you're in a tent in bear country, like there's legit bears outside, and you're in a tent and you're like, yo, I'm sleeping with my gun. Okay, I'm with you. You don't have to tell me anything else. But you're inside of a vehicle, like a large vehicle, and you're getting into bed with your gun. I don't know. To me, I'm leaning toward first degree murder for that reason. I'm leaning toward first degree murder because you're getting into the bed with your gun. And I can't make sense of it in a vehicle. So maybe that's just a limitation that I have. Maybe it's a limitation of my imagination. Again, if you're in a fabric tent outside in bear country and you're going to sleep with your gun, totally get it. But if you're in a vehicle, I can't make sense of that. So to me, the first degree murder is where I'm landing, mostly because I don't get the whole getting into bed with your gun thing. I don't get sleeping with a gun under your pillow unless you're in if you're in a tent, I kind of get it. You know, you don't want it to be far. It's kind of dangerous, but whatever. You know, that if that's how you choose to do it, that's how you choose to do it. But if you're in a vehicle, a large vehicle, even in bear country, I don't know that you sleep with your gun under your pillow. So, I mean, let me see if I can find Rosie from the wedding anniversary killing. Rosie was quite a large vehicle. I don't see it. Rosie's like, it's not like a car. It's like a, what would you call it? Like a minibus or something like that. What about the passion part of it? Heat of passion. Heat of passion would be manslaughter. So heat of passion would be like if you're so, but for it to be manslaughter, you really have to be in a situation where you're claiming that an average person, though they might not agree with the action, they could understand how the heat of passion could cause that action. That's how I'm going to describe it. So I would say one of the main differences between second-degree murder, first-degree murder is premeditated. So you planned it, even if you just planned it for 30 seconds. So if you grab your gun, spontaneously you grab your gun, you go into the room and you shoot her 30 seconds later, that's first-degree murder because you planned it. You grabbed the gun. That would be a plan, even though the plan happened just seconds before you acted. Of course, a long, elaborate plan, of course, is also first-degree murder. Second-degree murder would be like spontaneous, but not heat of passion. So second-degree murder would be you're getting into bed with your gun for some dumb reason. You don't plan to kill the person, but you are getting into bed with your gun, and they say something like, I don't think this relationship's going to work out. And you just kirk out and kill them. Okay. That'd be like second degree murder. You didn't plan it. It wasn't something that you wanted to do, but in the moment you just spontaneously decided to do it and you did it. So there was no plan, but you did it. So that's second. Now, manslaughter would be like he goes into the room and he sees his wife with another man. I know y'all ladies probably don't like that example, but that's one of the most common examples for manslaughter. I'm not saying manslaughter happens most commonly in that situation, but I'm saying, you go in the room, you see your wife with another man, or something that an average person would say, no, you shouldn't kill people, but I get how you might have lost control at that time, even though we're going to punish you. But we understand losing control, even though we don't condone it. So that's manslaughter. So an average person would have to be able to say, I get why you lost control, right? Even though we don't condone it, so we're going to have to punish you. So that would be more like manslaughter. Manslaughter would also be heat of passion, so no planning. So manslaughter also has what's called a cooling off period. So let's say a husband or a man walks into the room. He sees his wife with another man. If he shoots both of them right there, that's probably going to be manslaughter, right? That's textbook manslaughter. Heat of passion, kirked out, lost it, shot both of them, manslaughter. But if he has a cooling off period, so he walks in, he sees them both there, he doesn't have his gun, so he goes across the street, knocks on his neighbor's door, asks, can he borrow the gun? Neighbor goes, gets the gun. Like, what do you need the gun for? Nah, man, I just got a blah, 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 whatever. Neighbor gives him the gun. He walks back over to his house and then shoots both people. That wouldn't be manslaughter because he had that time period to cool off and to recollect his senses and recollect his mind. So then that would be more on the first degree murder side because it wasn't spontaneous because he had to go get the gun, and he did have a plan because that's what he went to get the gun for. So that would be some differences between first degree murder, second degree murder, and manslaughter. I think there's evidence in this case to say that it's first degree murder. And the reason why is because for me, I don't buy that he just sleeps with his gun under the pillow every day, particularly because he knows she has her gun too. So it's like, I mean, that's what he said. So I don't know why she's sleeping with her gun, frankly. I think that he decided he was going to kill her. Her fingerprints were not on the gun. Yeah, I mean, whether that, I get that, Miss Lily. For me, that's a bit of a minor issue. I could see why that would be a bigger issue for other people. Fingerprints, I don't think are always going to be found on a gun that's under a pillow that you might have to slide under there. That could, but at any rate, for me, I feel like this is pretty straightforward first degree murder. If he could have convinced me that he had to have his gun, again, if he was in a tent, I could see second degree. If he was in a tent in a country where there's wolves or there's bears, or where we don't know if a random person might just run up on us, so we always sleep with our guns, I could certainly get closer to second degree if he were in a unprotected area. But he's sleeping in a converted minibus. He didn't express any concern that humans would harm him. He said there might be some coyotes out there, which are of no threat to you in a minibus. I don't see why you're taking your gun into the bed. Now, even if he said, I have a shelf, if he said I have a shelf above the bed where I keep my gun at night, even that, I could get closer to second degree murder, right? Because, okay, he's getting into the bed. He's going to put the gun up on the shelf. I mean, that wouldn't be totally secure, really, in a minibus where you're riding and it can fall off the shelf. But that's where I put it while I'm asleep. I could get closer because at least I can understand him having the gun. And then the killing could be spontaneous. That would be second degree murder. But to me, the fact that you're getting into the bed with the gun tells me that you want to kill him. Yeah, the best defense attorney, this guy is, well, I feel like the best defense attorney could have tried to get him from first degree maybe to second degree. An excellent defense attorney might have been able to get that down to manslaughter, but he's getting convicted of something. So y'all, I'm going to continue to play. We'll have to see how much longer this verdict takes. I think we're all expecting it to happen today. I'm going to just continue to play the closing arguments. Maybe we'll answer a few more questions. Lou, Miss Lily says she was asleep already. But his testimony says that she was talking to him. So whether or not she was asleep before he entered the room, his testimony is that obviously she woke up. Obviously she woke up and she attacked him. She kneed him in the nuts and maybe, and said that she was going to kill him. By the way, y'all, Miss Lily, I want to ask you a question. If we agree, okay, just take yourself out of the whatever we believe to have happened. Let's take his version of events. Let's totally but assume his version of events is the truth. Let's say we were watching a movie and it's all videotaped and we could see that everything he said was exactly true. Would we agree? Would we still even agree that that was self-defense? I know he's lying. I know that. I mean, that's my opinion. He's lying about a lot of his story. But let's just take his version of events and try to analyze it. Would we even give him self-defense, even if he were telling the truth? Because what he says is, she said, "That's it, you're dead." And she reaches under her pillow. So let's just say that actually did happen. Let's just say it did happen. Let's just say that did happen. I still kind of feel like I'm not giving him the self-defense thing. I'm still dubious about even this is what they say in the law is viewing the facts in the light most favorable to the defendant So we're just taking all of everything he said and everything we know, but just agreeing for the moment to accept his version of events. I'm not totally there with self-defense even still, because this is, I don't know. Because he shoots her. If he had punched her in the face and she died, this is a kind of a gruesome kind of way of analyzing things, but I'm just trying to figure it out here. If he had punched her and that killed her by accident or something, then I could kind of get closer to the self-defense, because I'm putting myself in that position. I'm in the bed. My wife's like, "That's it, you're dead." I don't think she's gonna kill me. Like, I really don't think she's gonna kill me. So if anything, if I think her gun is there, I'm gonna take my hand and I'm gonna put it over top of her hand in the gun or whatever. And I'm gonna be like, "Yo," and I'm gonna be like, "Yo, if you don't move your hand, I'm gonna blast you." If I think she's going for a gun, you better believe it. I don't think I still can't connect my very first instinct being to shoot her. So I'm still not getting there. I'm still not getting there with, even with that. I'm still not getting there, even with self-defense. I can't get there with self-defense. Even taking all of his testimony as true, I just don't get there. Joanna, welcome to the chat. The camper bus was so small, he was right there. He could have grabbed her. Remember, he was getting in bed. Something else happened right after that. Yeah, there has to be something else. There has to be something else. Everybody do hit the like, y'all. This is kind of a smaller channel. We're trying to grow it up. We really want to talk about these kind of more gruesome situations and trials and whatnot on this channel. So it's even listening to his testimony, even if I believe him, I still feel like he's still guilty of something, because that's not how you react to that provocation that he just said, with the history that he said they had. And he did say she had attacked him, and I'm not gonna dispute that. But she never given him a deadly attack. She never shot at him. She never stabbed him. And he didn't even testify that he saw the gun. He didn't testify that he saw the gun that night. So I'm still not there with it. His testimony of the pillow is, he smacked her with the pillow. I think it was after she elbowed him in the nuts. So he's getting in bed. I don't know if she's asleep or awake, but once he gets in bed, if she sleeps, she wakes up. She's upset with him, and some kind of way she winds up elbowing him in the nuts. He picks up the pillow and smacks her with the pillow. She says, "That's it, you're dead," or something of that sort, and reaches for her gun, and he shoots her. You know what I'm saying? I'm having a tough time even getting to self-defense, even if I grant him all of those facts. Even if I grant him everything he just said, I'm not on the 51% towards self-defense, even still. Andre, I get what you mean with the punch, but given the pillow and the fan he cut of the body and then went to act like everything is normal. So I'm trying not to take what he did after the fact and kind of retroactively put it into the killing unless what happened after the fact showed pre-planning. And I know Miss Lely was like, why do you have a saw? I'm totally fine with him having a saw in a camper. I mean, it makes sense he would have a saw. It makes sense he would have trash bags. Everything he had in the camper makes sense for it to be there. So I can't just say the fact that he cut her body up and stuff necessarily means that he planned it. It could certainly be he panicked after the fact and he tried to cover up what he did. So it lends some credence to a pre-plan, but it wasn't a good plan. I mean, he shot her in the bed. If he really planned it, he would have taken her out. If he planned it that way, if he planned it like from days and weeks before, he would have taken her out in the woods and shot her or something. So I don't think it was a pre-plan. I don't feel like I have the pre-plan, like he led her there just to kill her in the camper. That wouldn't make sense with getting his sister involved and all that stuff. So what he did after is not weighing much on my calculation, because I don't think you make a plan to go kill her while you're on a vacation with your sister. I think the plan happened in the moment, which would have been within the few minutes before he shot her. He was drinking, he was smoking. They probably had some kind of verbal altercation. He was already pissed off at her for ruining his vacation, for not going along with the way he wanted things to be. There was tension in the relationship. She wouldn't be the woman. She wouldn't go along with things the way he wanted things to be done. And I think in a moment, he decided he was going to kill her. I don't think that the man said before they even went there, I'm going to take my wife over to go out with my sister and just shoot her. That to me wouldn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, I'm certainly a lot closer to his plan happening in the minutes right before he did the shooting. Remember, the plan can happen in a few seconds. It doesn't have to be a long drawn out thing. It can be, you grab the gun, you're like, I'm about to go kill this person. You know what I mean? That would be first degree murder. Second degree murder would be he's getting in the bed. He has his gun. He has no thoughts of killing her, or he has no plan to do it. She wakes up and she spits on him and then he just shoots her. That would be second degree murder, because he was not planning to do that. If he grabs his gun and goes where she is and shoots her, that's first degree. The plan doesn't have to be any more extensive than that. The plan doesn't have to be any more extensive than grabbing your gun, going over and shooting somebody on purpose. That's first degree murder. So you don't have to have gotten, an alibi and all. You don't need all that stuff. So I'm saying first degree because I think he did it on purpose. And I think he did it. For me, getting in the bed with the gun shows that he had designs on doing something like that. Now, this is the interesting thing. Everything that happened after going to breakfast, stabbing her, y'all heard all the details. I don't have to keep, rehashing all that. The interesting thing is, this is a really interesting thing, y'all. Y'all want to know something very strange about our legal system? If we had a videotape that he did kill her in self-defense, let's say there's no doubt. Let's just say we all can see the tape and we always say, yep, self-defense. The interesting thing is everything he did after would not change the self-defense. So all of the mutilation, all of the going to breakfast, all of the, the tattoo, the lying, the sending the text, he would still just be not guilty. So isn't that kind of weird that he would just be not guilty? And you would say, Well, what about all this other stuff? Well, the answer would be, did you see the tape? Yes. Was that self-defense? Yes. Then all the other stuff doesn't matter. He would just be not guilty. So do they have other charges they could possibly place on him in this area, like, mutilating a dead body or whatever? There's probably some other lesser stuff they could put on him if they wanted to. But if we all saw a tape and it was just totally clear that it was self-defense, everything else, as far as this trial is concerned, would not make any difference. Yeah, so there could be a lesser charge, but I don't think they've charged him with a lesser charge in this trial, LTK. That's my point. I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that they had charged him with that. So your question is, could they, if they have that statute? Yeah, they could charge him with that, but I don't see that in this trial. They have charged him with that. So it would be weird that, I mean, technically he is in that exact scenario right now, except there's no video or convincing evidence that it was self-defense. But it could very well be that there was some kind of clear evidence that it was self-defense, and all the stuff he did after just would be like, you shouldn't have done that, bad boy. I didn't hear any we'll rev it up again. If it was self-defense in that moment, what you did after the moment can't retroactively, it can't go back in time to change the fact that it was self-defense. You see what I'm saying? Let's see. We heard the judge read the jury instructions yesterday. Miss Lily, did you hear anything about mutilating a corpse or anything like that in the jury instructions? I heard the judge say he could be found of 4 things: first-degree murder, second-degree murder, manslaughter, or not guilty. I don't remember the judge mentioning anything else. So, again, I didn't hear any other type of charge that was on the table. I mean, might have missed it. Sometimes I'm in and out. But I didn't hear that anything else was on the table. We can listen to that part again, y'all. I'm going to play the finish of this, and then we'll listen to the judge's instructions, which will come up after, and we'll see what he's facing. All right. And the judge is going to explain first and second degree murder and manslaughter. So let's continue.
And that he doesn't remember much of the night he killed her.
Let me move it back just a little.
And that his memory.
Look at his lawyer, y'all. She's like,
Mr. Ferlazzo claims that he doesn't remember what he told police, that he doesn't remember being in the interview with police, and that he doesn't remember much of the night he killed her, and that his memories were not full at the time and are still fragmented. Luckily for Mr. Ferlazzo and for all of us, every single word that Mr. Ferlazzo said to the police about what happened to Emily was recorded. The reason that Trooper Cody turned on his body camera when he called Mr. Ferlazzo, the reason that Detective Voris did the interview in a room equipped with video and audio, the reason that Detective Voris made sure to have an extra recorder on his body when he went into different places, went to the breaks, went to the holding cell, just in case. The reason was all to make sure that everything Mr. Ferlazzo said about what happened to Emily was recorded, and that we would all be able to refresh his memory. You all heard every word that he said to the police just days after he killed Emily. We played you every video, every recording. You have the transcripts. There are no secrets here about what was said or done. There are no mysteries. And immediately after signing the Miranda warning with Detective Voris, Joseph was ready to talk.
All right. So Joe, is it fair to say that you have an idea of what we want to talk about?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm here to talk to you. Like, you don't have to be around the bush.
Okay.
I'm sure you already talked to Spencer. I fucked up. Like I said, like, I had a fucking lapse. And did something that I can't undo. So here we are.
And less than 2 minutes after that,
So I came to Vermont. I was living in New Hampshire for like the last 2 months with my wife and her family. And I came to Vermont. We were supposed to have like a weekend away, like vacation, do some camping, like have some fun. And like as soon as I like put the vehicle in park, like my wife went completely, like completely psychotic. And I shot her. She was supposed to die. And now here we are. So,
All right. Can you, where did that happen?
Bolton, Vermont.
Okay. So, I guess my next question is, when did that happen? Saturday. Do you know about what time? Saturday evening? All right.
No, no. Saturday morning. I think I was thinking. It was like, yeah, it was Saturday morning.
the state believes that the interview, the recordings, and the transcripts of the same all show that Mr. Ferlazzo was ready, he was willing, and he was able to give a coherent, a voluntary statement. You saw for yourself how he interacted with police throughout this interview, and you saw for yourself how he presented on the stand. You heard him outline in the interview with police in great detail what led up to shooting Emily twice in the head, and never, not once, did he say that Emily was a threat to him, that she had a gun, that he thought she was going to kill him. In fact, what you heard him say repeatedly when asked multiple times was that she had stopped fighting.
Can you describe Emily when you shot her? Like, what was she doing?
She had stopped fighting and she had gone and laid down. And I jumped on top of her. And I shot her.
How many times?
She had stopped fighting, she had gone and laid down. I went and jumped on her, and I shot her in the head. The physical and forensic evidence shows that Mr. Ferlazzo did not act in self-defense. Just days later, he had no injuries, no bumps, no lumps, no bruises, no scratches, No burn marks from this alleged burning candle that was wrestled over during this interaction that he testified to yesterday. The physical and forensic evidence shows that this was willful, that he intended to do it. His actions were deliberate. They were not provoked under any circumstances, and they were premeditated. He planned to kill her during that 5 minutes, and he executed that plan. Mr. Ferlazzo's statement to police is detailed, it's thoughtful, it's thorough. At times, you see him correct himself if he gets a detail wrong. He goes out of his way to correct it with police. He's given opportunities to warm up, to sleep, to eat, to drink, to smoke. He was given numerous breaks. He had time to contemplate and correct inaccuracies, fill in the details when police asked for them.
And while this was, while she was in bed, where were you, when Oh, sitting right here on this little couch. I already touched on that. Sure. I think we had asked where the Glock was currently, but where did you get it from? It was in the closet. Where's the closet? It was in the closet. Okay. I was on the couch. Okay. I just got up and grabbed it. Shot it.
At no point during his statement does he ever say anything about Emily being a threat to him. At numerous points, you heard him talk about the feeling that he had before he did it, that he felt warm, and he specifically described that feeling as rage, how he wanted to stop her, and how he made a decision to do that.
I remember sitting there
On the couch.
and just trying to it was raining. I remember just watching the rain. It was lightning. And I was on vacation and I was just trying to enjoy myself and stay out of the rain. And I guess trying to relax and you just get trying to unfurl my piece. And then it was just like, I just felt this weight come over me. Yeah, it was like,
What did that make you feel like? You talked about before, like you felt like a warm sensation in your body.
I think it was loss of focus, rage, heat.
Were you feeling angry or were you feeling sad or bored? How were you feeling?
Felt pushed, fed up.
Pushed and fed up. In defense counsel's arguments, they said that it will be up to you to determine whether or not Mr. Ferlazzo on the stand yesterday was telling the truth or if he was lying to get away with it. Making up a story now to get away with it. That will be up for you to decide. But the state would just highlight that Mr. Ferlazzo testified to a history of abuse, being assaulted by Emily numerous times, having black eyes, bumps, bruises. But not a single witness got on the stand during this trial and corroborated any of that. No friends that they lived with or hung out with saw any of this alleged abuse. Nobody saw these bruises. The only witness that got on the stand and testified to seeing bruises was Adrienne Bass, Emily's mother, who testified that Emily had bruises on her, who said that Joseph was taunting Emily while they were driving once, so much so and poking at her, so much so that Adrian feared for their safety. Adrian told you that at that New Year's Eve event, Emily called her on the phone and she had locked herself in a bathroom, and Adrian could hear Mr. Ferlazzo yelling at her on the other side. That's the evidence that you heard. Further, again, Mr. Ferlazzo testified that Emily had a gun, a detail never mentioned until this trial. The detail that Mr. Ferlazzo now says he left out of his interview with police, the reason, the why he killed Emily, arguably the most important detail for a self-defense claim, the most important detail that most people would have led with, is now the detail that he wants you to believe over everything else. He wants you to believe that detail so much that you acquit him of this crime. But not so important that he didn't tell his sister, he didn't tell his best friend, he didn't tell the police. Specifically, he didn't tell Trooper Cody, he didn't tell Detective Voris, he didn't tell Detective Richardson, he didn't tell Detective Truex, he didn't tell Detective Nolan. A detail so important that he only knows this detail exists because it came to him in flashbacks. This is not a flashback. This is not a merry-go-round. This is reality. And in reality, there is not a single piece of evidence to corroborate this one detail. The truth in this case is not complicated. The truth is simple. I fucked up. I made a mess. I cleaned it up. We believe that the evidence shows beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Ferlazzo killed Emily and that he did so willfully, that he did so intentionally, that he did not do so in self-defense, that it was deliberate and it was premeditated. And we ask that you find him guilty of first-degree murder.
Judge, may we approach, please? So as it now reads, to find Mr. Ferlazzo guilty of first-degree murder, you must find beyond a reasonable doubt the killing was not done under great provocation or sudden passion.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time that I read jury instructions to you. You'll note that each of you has a copy of the jury instructions. You're free to read along with me. I'll be saying them out loud, so if you prefer just to listen, you can do that. But if it's helpful to read along, that's fine too. You'll be able to take a copy of these instructions into the jury room with you when you begin your deliberations. Members of the jury, now that you've heard the evidence and the arguments, I must instruct you on the law that applies to this case. You must follow the laws stated in these instructions. You must determine the facts based on the evidence that is presented in the case, and you must apply the law that I give you in these instructions. You must not single out any one instruction as stating the law. You must consider the instructions as a whole. You should not concern yourself with the wisdom of any rule of law or any opinion you might have about what the law should be. You may not base your verdict on bias, prejudice, or sympathy. Do not consider consequences. In your deliberations, you are not to consider what happens after your verdict. Under Vermont law, all matters after the verdict are solely the responsibility of the court. The charge. The state has charged Joseph Filazzo with first-degree murder of Emily Filazzo as follows. That Joseph Filazzo in the county of Chittenden at Bolton on or about October 16, 2021, willfully, deliberately, with premeditation, with intent to kill, unlawfully killed a person, to wit, Emily Filazzo, by shooting her twice in the head. Mr. Filazzo has pleaded not guilty to the charge. On or about. You will note that the charge alleges that the offense was committed on or about October 16, 2021. The proof need not establish with certainty the exact date of the alleged offense. It is sufficient evidence in the case proves beyond a reasonable doubt that the offense was committed within the period of the date alleged. The charge is not evidence. The fact that Mr. Filazzo is on trial is not evidence against him. Likewise, the charge that the state has filed is not evidence of Mr. Filazzo's guilt. You are not to be influenced by the fact that the state has brought this charge against him. The burden is on the state to prove that Mr. Filazzo is guilty. Presumption of innocence. Mr. Filazzo is presumed to be innocent of the charge. This is called the presumption of innocence. Although Mr. Filazzo is accused, he is innocent at the beginning of the trial. This presumption of innocence stays with him throughout the trial and during your deliberations. The presumption is itself a piece of evidence which you should consider in Mr. Filazzo's favor in deciding whether to find him guilty or not guilty. The presumption of innocence means that you must find Mr. Filazzo not guilty unless, after careful and impartial consideration of all the evidence, you are satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt that he is guilty. Evidence. Your duty is to determine the facts from the evidence. The evidence is the oral testimony of the witnesses and the exhibits which have been introduced into evidence. Any testimony which I have stricken from the record or excluded from the case is not evidence, and the comments and arguments of the attorneys are not evidence. Furthermore, I do not intend to indicate one way or another as to how you should decide this case based on my rulings I have made or anything I have said. The attorneys have a duty to object to questions or answers which they believe are not admissible. You may not hold it against either side if an attorney feels it is necessary to make objections. Circumstantial evidence. There are two types of evidence from which you may find the facts of this case: direct and circumstantial evidence. Direct evidence is the testimony of one who asserts actual knowledge of a fact, such as an eyewitness. Circumstantial evidence is proof of a chain of facts and circumstances which may tend to prove or disprove an issue in the case. For example, if a witness were to tell you that he or she had seen fresh cow tracks in a field, the observations of a witness would be direct evidence, which, if believed, would point to the presence of cow or cows on that property. This inference to be drawn from the observations would be circumstantial evidence that there were cows on that property. The law does not require that Mr. Filazzo's guilt be established by direct evidence alone, that is, by testimony of someone who actually saw Mr. Filazzo commit the alleged act or offense. One or more of the essential elements, or all of the essential elements, may be established by reasonable inference from other facts which are established by direct evidence testimony. Circumstantial evidence alone may be sufficient proof of the commission of a crime upon which to find a defendant guilty. The law makes no distinction between the weight to be given to direct or circumstantial evidence. nor is a greater degree of certainty required of circumstantial evidence than of direct evidence. You should consider all of the evidence in the case and give it such weight as you think it deserves. Credibility of witnesses. You are the sole judges of the evidence. The credibility of the witnesses and the weight to be given to the testimony of each of them is up to you. In considering the testimony of any witness, you may take into account their ability and opportunity to observe, the manner and conduct of the witness while testifying, any interest, bias, or prejudice the witness may have, and the reasonableness of the testimony of the witness considered in the light of all the evidence in the case. Inconsistencies or discrepancies in the testimony of a witness or between the testimony of different witnesses may or may not cause you to discredit such testimony. Two or more persons witnessing an incident or a transaction might see it or hear it differently. In weighing the effect of a discrepancy, consider whether it pertains to a matter of importance or to an unimportant detail. You may believe all the testimony of any witness, believe it in part and disbelieve it in part, or you may reject it altogether. You do not have to accept the testimony of any witness, even if it is uncontradicted. It is for you to say what you will believe and what you will disbelieve. Credibility of witnesses, police officers. In this case, you have heard testimony from police officers. You should consider such testimony in the same way that you consider any other testimony in the case. In evaluating the officer's credibility, you should use the same law you apply to the testimony of any other witness. As with any other witness, you may consider the officer's testimony in light of their training and experience. You should not give either greater or lesser weight to the testimony of a witness merely because the witness is a police officer. Expert witnesses. You have heard testimony from expert witnesses. An expert is a witness who has extra knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education about a particular subject. The value of an opinion given by an expert witness depends on their ability and upon the facts they use as the basis of their opinion. If the facts used by the expert are proven by the evidence, and if the expert is highly qualified, and if they are impartial, then their opinion may be of great value. On the other hand, if the expert's opinion is based upon one or more facts that are not supported by the evidence, or if the expert is biased or not qualified, then their testimony may be of little or no value. As with any other witness, you may accept all or part or none of the expert's testimony. You may give the expert's testimony whatever weight you think it deserves and consider it together with all other evidence. Defendant as witness. Mr. Filazzo has taken the stand and testified in this case. He has the right to testify if he decides to do so. You are to weigh his testimony the same way you weigh the testimony of any other witness. Defendant's statement. You heard testimony and viewed evidence that Mr. Filazzo made statements to Detective James Boris concerning the incident involved in this case. You must determine whether Mr. Filazzo made those statements and whether he made them voluntarily. Before you may consider any alleged confession, you must find that the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that the confession was voluntary. In other words, that it was the product of a free and deliberate choice rather than coercion or improper inducement. In assessing voluntariness, you should consider the totality of the circumstances under which the statements were made. You may consider such factors as the location, the other persons present, Mr. Filazzo's emotional state, and his personal characteristics. You may consider the statements to be voluntary if they were the product of Mr. Filazzo's free and rational choice. If you find that Mr. Filazzo's statements were not voluntary, then you may not consider them at all during your deliberations. If you determine beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Filazzo's statements were voluntary, then you should give them whatever weight as you think they deserve under the circumstances. Number of witnesses. The fact that one side may have called more witnesses than the other side is of no significance. Your task is to evaluate the credibility of the witnesses and to weigh all of the evidence. Exhibits. The exhibits which have been introduced are evidence, along with the testimony for your consideration. The court officer will take the exhibits to the jury room, and you may examine them in your deliberations. When you reach a verdict, you should return the exhibits to the court officer. Two kinds of exhibits: the magazine and live ammunition exhibit, and also the video and audio recordings, including Mr. Filazzo's recorded statements and the PowerPoint of the geolocation evidence, will not be in the jury room. To view these exhibits, please give a note to the court officer, and they will be played for you or viewed by you in the courtroom. Stipulation of fact. The state and Mr. Filazzo have agreed that you may find certain facts. These are called stipulations of fact and have been admitted as exhibits. As with any evidence in this trial, you must decide what weight you will give these stipulations. Use of electronic devices. Your verdict must be based solely on the evidence admitted during the trial. During your deliberations, you must not seek any information about this case from any outside source, including but not limited to television, newspaper, radio, cell phones, iPhones, smartphones, social networking sites, or any site on the internet. You also must not communicate by any means about your deliberations with anyone who is not a fellow juror. This includes tweeting, texting, blogging, emailing, posting information on a social networking site or other website, or any other means of communication at all. Juror note-taking. During this trial, you have been provided with pen and paper, and some of you have taken notes. As I explained at the beginning of the trial, all jurors should be given equal attention during the deliberations regarding of whether or not they have taken notes, regardless of whether or not they have taken notes. Any notes you have taken may only be used to refresh your memory during deliberations. You may not use your notes as authority to persuade your fellow jurors as to what a witness did or did not say. In your deliberations, you must rely upon your collective memory of the evidence in deciding the facts of the case. If there is any difference between your memory of the evidence and your notes, you may ask that the record of the proceedings be read back. If a difference still exists, the record must prevail over your notes. Personal knowledge or experience of juror. In deliberating upon your verdict, you are not expected to put aside matters of common knowledge or your own observations or experience of the general affairs of life. You may use matters of common knowledge or personal observations or experience to evaluate the evidence presented at trial. You may use the knowledge and experience which you possess in weighing evidence and testing its credibility. However, a juror having special knowledge of a subject may neither state this knowledge to fellow jurors nor act upon it themselves in arriving at a verdict. You must not tell your fellow jurors about matters which are based on special knowledge concerning an issue in the case on trial, which did not come from the evidence received in the courtroom in this case. Burden of proof. The state bears the burden of proving Mr. Filazzo's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. This means that the state must prove each of the essential elements of the charge beyond a reasonable doubt. This burden of proof remains on the state throughout the trial and never shifts to Mr. Filazzo. Mr. Filazzo does not have to prove that he is innocent. He is not required to call any witnesses or to present any evidence or to testify in his own behalf. Reasonable doubt. The state's burden is to prove Mr. Filazzo's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. There is no precise definition of reasonable doubt. The state does not have to prove guilt beyond all possible doubt. A reasonable doubt is a doubt based on reason and common sense, which comes from a fair and rational consideration of the evidence or the lack of evidence in the case. It is not a vague, speculative, or imaginary doubt. Mr. Palazzo may not be convicted based on suspicion or conjecture. If you have a reasonable doubt, you must find Mr. Palazzo not guilty, even if you think that the charge is probably true. If after you have considered all the evidence and these instructions, you have a reasonable doubt about Mr. Palazzo's guilt, then you must find him not guilty. On the other hand, if you are convinced of Mr. Palazzo's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, then you must find him guilty. Essential elements of the charged crime. Again, the state has charged Mr. Palazzo with first-degree murder as follows. Joseph Palazzo, in the county of Chittenden, at Bolton, on or about October 16th, 2021, willfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with intent to kill, unlawfully killed a person, to wit, Emily Palazzo, by shooting her twice in the head. Every crime is made up of essential elements. Before Mr. Palazzo can be found guilty of the charge, the state must have proven each of the essential elements beyond a reasonable doubt. In this case, the essential elements are that on the date and at the place alleged, one, Joseph Palazzo; two, caused the death of Emily Palazzo; three, the killing was unlawful; four, Mr. Palazzo's killing of Ms. Palazzo was willful; five, his killing of Ms. Palazzo was deliberate; and six, his killing of Ms. Palazzo was premeditated. The first element is that Joseph Palazzo is the person who committed the alleged acts. The second essential element is that Mr. Palazzo caused the death of Emily Palazzo. The state must have proven that Mr. Palazzo's acts produced Ms. Palazzo's death in a natural and continuous sequence, unbroken by any efficient intervening cause. We must conclude that Ms. Palazzo's life ended by means other than natural causes, accident, or suicide. We must also conclude that, but for Mr. Palazzo's acts, Ms. Palazzo's death would not have occurred. Here, the state alleges that Joseph Palazzo caused the death of Emily Palazzo by shooting her twice in the head. The third essential element is that the killing was unlawful. The term unlawful killing means that Ms. Palazzo was killed without legal excuse or legal justification. Legal excuse or justification ordinarily refers to such things as self-defense or legal necessity. A killing may be justified where a person acts in self-defense. Here, the state must have proven that Mr. Palazzo did not act in self-defense. The fourth, fifth, and sixth essential elements require the state to have proven that Mr. Palazzo's killing of Ms. Palazzo was willful, deliberate, and premeditated. The mental state or intent with which a person does an act may be shown by the way in which they express it to others or by their conduct. In determining Mr. Palazzo's mental state or intent, you should consider all of the surrounding facts and circumstances established by the evidence. The fourth essential element is that Mr. Palazzo's killing of Ms. Palazzo was willful. A willful act is one which is knowing and intentional. You may find that the killing was willful if Mr. Palazzo killed Ms. Palazzo on purpose and not accidentally, carelessly, or unintentionally. The fifth essential element is that Mr. Palazzo's killing of Ms. Palazzo was deliberate. An act is deliberate if it is carefully considered. Mr. Palazzo must not have acted out of sudden impulse, but rather after deliberating for a period of time, however long or short. Deliberation is the act of thinking about and considering the reasons for and against an act or course of conduct. A person may think about killing over a period of months or over a period of seconds. Either period of time may be enough. The issue is the extent and quality of the deliberation, not its duration. Although also it is not enough to show that Mr. Palazzo had enough time to deliberate, the state must have proven that he actually thought about killing Ms. Palazzo before he did it. The last essential element is that Mr. Palazzo's killing of Ms. Palazzo was premeditated. A killing is premeditated if the actor thinks about it and plans it for some period of time before acting. Premeditation differs from deliberation in that it involves planning how to do an act, in addition to thinking about whether or not to do it. No specific amount of time is required. As with deliberation, a person may plan a killing over a period of months or over a period of seconds. Both may be premeditation. The issue is the extent and quality of the premeditation, not its duration. Again, it is not enough to show that there was enough time for premeditation. The state must have proven that Mr. Filazzo actually thought about killing Ms. Filazzo and planned it before he did it. To find Mr. Filazzo guilty of first-degree murder, you must find beyond a reasonable doubt that the killing was not done under great provocation or sudden passion that would cause a reasonable person to lose self-control and act without thinking, and as further defined in the remainder of the charge. The state bears the burden of proving all of the essential elements. If the state has not proven each of the essential elements of the charge beyond a reasonable doubt, then you must find Mr. Filazzo not guilty of first-degree murder. However, if the state has proven all of the essential elements beyond a reasonable doubt, you must return a verdict of guilty. Self-defense. Evidence has been introduced bearing on the issue of self-defense as justification for the use of deadly force by Mr. Filazzo. The state bears the burden of proving that the use of deadly force was unlawful. A use of deadly force committed in lawful self-defense is lawful and not a crime. Here, the state must have proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Filazzo did not act in self-defense. He has no burden of proof on this issue. A person has the right to defend himself when he is attacked or when he reasonably believes he is in imminent danger of being killed or suffering great bodily harm. A person in that situation has the right to use only such force as is reasonably necessary to repel the attack or the perceived imminent danger. A use of deadly force is justified by self-defense if, 1, Mr. Filazzo reasonably believed that he was in imminent danger of being killed or of suffering great bodily harm, and, 2, Mr. Filazzo's use of deadly force was reasonably necessary to repel the perceived threat. The right of self-defense does not require that the person actually be assaulted, but Mr. Filazzo must have believed that he was in imminent danger of great bodily harm, and his belief must have been reasonable under the circumstances. His expectation of harm must have been based upon fact and not on some imaginary fear. Furthermore, if he honestly and reasonably believed it was immediately necessary to use deadly force to protect himself from an imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury, the law does not require him to retreat. Self-defense requires that Mr. Filazzo must have had a reasonable fear of imminent harm. In deciding this issue, must consider what he knew about Ms. Filazzo at the time. You may consider their relationship history, including any aggressive or hostile acts by Ms. Filazzo, and any other evidence you consider relevant, including who started the confrontation. When assessing the reasonableness of Mr. Filazzo's fear, you may consider the individual characteristics of Mr. Filazzo and Ms. Filazzo, such as their respective size, gender, age, physical condition, strength, stamina, courage, and assertiveness. Self-defense permits only the amount of force that is reasonably necessary to repel the perceived harm. A person may use the amount of force that reasonably appears to be necessary under all of the circumstances known to them at the time. In this case, you must decide whether Mr. Filazzo reasonably believed it was necessary to use the amount of force that he did use. When a person has reasonable grounds to believe that an assault is imminent, he need not wait until it actually occurs before he may resort to self-defense. Once the issue of self-defense appears in the case, the burden is on the state to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Filazzo did not act in self-defense or that the force used by Mr. Filazzo was excessive under the circumstances. Mr. Filazzo is not required to prove that he acted in self-defense. Again, all of the elements of the offense must have been present at the same time. If the state has proven each of the essential elements of first-degree murder beyond a reasonable doubt, then you will be done with your deliberations, and you must return a verdict that Mr. Filazzo is guilty of first-degree murder, self-defense, and lesser included offenses. If you conclude that the state has failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Filazzo did not act in self-defense in the killing of Ms. Filazzo, then he acted lawfully and cannot be found guilty of any lesser included offense, and your deliberations are over. If you decide that the state has not proven each of the essential elements of first-degree murder, then you must consider whether Mr. Filazzo is guilty of one of the lesser offenses, or if you are unable to agree upon a verdict concerning the charge of first-degree murder, after all reasonable efforts to reach a unanimous verdict, then you may move on to consider the lesser offenses, lesser included offenses. The lesser included offenses to first-degree murder are second-degree murder and voluntary manslaughter. There is no involuntary manslaughter in this case. The first three elements for all of the lesser offenses are the same as the first three elements for first-degree murder. Namely, the state must have proven that Mr. Filazzo, one, that it was Mr. Joseph Filazzo, two, caused the death of Emily Filazzo, and three, the killing was unlawful. However, for lesser offenses, the state need not have proven that the killing was willful, deliberate, and premeditated. The mental states are different for each of the, and again, that's an error of the two lesser offenses. As you consider the mental state of the lesser offenses, you must also consider whether Mr. Filazzo's mental state was influenced by extenuating circumstances, such as sudden passion or great provocation that would have caused a reasonable person to lose self-control. Second-degree murder. The first lesser offense for you to consider is second-degree murder. If you reach the point of deciding whether or not the state has proven the lesser crime of second-degree murder, you must consider whether the state has proven the following essential elements beyond a reasonable doubt. That on the date alleged and at the place alleged, one, Joseph Filazzo, two, caused the death of Emily Filazzo, three, the killing was unlawful, four, in causing the death of Ms. Filazzo, Mr. Filazzo acted with an intent to kill or an intent to do great bodily harm or a wanton disregard of the likelihood that the death or great bodily harm would result. And five, when he caused the death of Ms. Filazzo, Mr. Filazzo's mental state was not influenced by extenuating circumstances such as sudden passion or great provocation that would have caused a reasonable person to lose self-control. The first three elements are defined in the same way as they are for first-degree murder. The fourth essential element of second-degree murder is that in causing the death of Ms. Filazzo, Mr. Filazzo acted with one, an intent to kill, or two, an intent to do great bodily harm, or three, a wanton disregard of the likelihood that death or great bodily harm would result. As you consider Mr. Filazzo's mental state at the time of the killing, you should consider all of the facts and circumstances. And you must decide whether the state has proven that Mr. Filazzo acted with at least one of the three mental states. A person acts intentionally if he or she acts purposely and not inadvertently because of mistake or by accident. You may find that Mr. Filazzo acted intentionally if it was his conscious objective to cause death or great bodily harm to Ms. Filazzo. The term great bodily harm means bodily injury, which involves a substantial risk of death, serious permanent disfigurement, or long-term loss or impairment of the function of any part or of an organ of the body. As used here, a wanton act is a reckless act done with extreme indifference to the probability that someone would die as a result. It is more than extreme negligence. The state must have proven that Mr. Filazzo was actually aware of the risk of death or great bodily harm, and that he ignored the risk. In determining Mr. Filazzo's state of mind, you should consider all of the surrounding facts and circumstances established by the evidence. The last essential element of second-degree murder is that when he caused the death of Ms. Filazzo, Mr. Filazzo's mental state was not influenced by extenuating circumstances such as sudden passion or great provocation that would have caused a reasonable person to lose self-control. Even if the state has proven the first four elements of second-degree murder, the presence of sudden passion or great provocation could mitigate the killing without justifying it altogether. Any person who is assaulted with violence or with an act of extreme insult may be provoked to a sudden impulse or anger which cannot be resisted until the person cools off. Words alone do not establish an act of extreme insult. If this person attacks their assailant and causes death, the killing may be found to be the result of anger or heat of passion. A killing is voluntary manslaughter and not second-degree murder if Mr. Filazzo was adequately provoked, did not have enough time to cool off, and in fact did not cool off. And if his inability to cool off within that time was reasonable under the circumstances. As used in this charge, the term sudden passion refers to such passion as would cause a reasonable person under the same or similar circumstances to act rashly and without reflection and deliberation. Sudden passion means that Mr. Filazzo acted or reacted from emotion, not from reason. Great provocation refers to a degree of provocation that would cause a reasonable person to lose self-control and to act without thinking. A mere annoyance or irritation is not enough. Words alone, no matter how offensive, insulting, or abusive, are not enough to reasonably provoke the use of deadly force. If there was sudden passion or great provocation, but not enough time passed between the provocation and Mr. Filazzo's alleged acts to allow a reasonable person to cool off, then the acts cannot be said to have resulted from sudden passion or great provocation. As to the last essential element of second-degree murder, the state must have proven that when Mr. Filazzo committed the acts that killed Ms. Filazzo, his state of mind was not influenced by sudden passion or great provocation that would have caused a reasonable person to lose self-control.
Judge, okay, now have page 18.
Page 18 is missing.
The next page.
Thank you, Danny.
Are you also missing page 18?
I have 18.
None of us do.
You don't have 18.
We do now.
I get why. Okay. All of the elements of the offense must have been present at the same time. If the state has proven each of the essential elements of second-degree murder beyond a reasonable doubt, then you will be done with your deliberations and you must return a verdict that Mr. Filazzo is guilty of second-degree murder. If you decide that the state has not proven each of the essential elements of second-degree murder, then you must consider whether Mr. Filazzo is guilty of one of the lesser offense, or if you are unable to agree upon a verdict concerning the offense of second-degree murder after after all reasonable efforts to reach unanimous verdict, then you may move on to consider the other lesser offense of voluntary manslaughter. I'm going to ask each of you to cross off "and involuntary manslaughter" that exists there. If you have a pen, or at least do it in the jury room. And it was also on page 14. And please cross it off on the bottom of 14, second line after lesser included offense. And on the next page, it says 3 lesser offenses. There are only 2 lesser offenses. That was a mistake the court made. Voluntary manslaughter is a lesser offense than second-degree murder. It is an intentional, unlawful killing of another human being committed under extenuating circumstances that mitigate but do not justify the killing, such as sudden passion or great provocation that would cause a reasonable person to lose self-control. A killing is voluntary manslaughter as opposed to murder if Mr. Filazzo lost control because of the sudden passion or great provocation, if he did not regain control before the alleged killing, and if a reasonable person in the same situation would not have regained control within the same time. If you reach the point of deciding whether or not the state has proven the lesser charge of voluntary manslaughter, you must consider whether the state has proven the following essential elements beyond a reasonable doubt: that on the date alleged and at the place alleged, 1, Joseph Filazzo; 2, caused the death of Emily Filazzo; 3, the killing was unlawful; and 4, in causing the death of Ms. Filazzo, Mr. Filazzo acted with intent to kill, or an intent to do great bodily harm, or a wanton disregard of the likelihood that the death or wanton disregard of the likelihood that death or great bodily injury harm would result. The first 3 essential elements are defined in the same way as they are defined for first-degree murder and for second-degree murder. The fourth and last element of voluntary manslaughter also contains the same 3 mental states that form the fourth element of second-degree murder. The state must have proven that in causing the death of Emily Filazzo, Mr. Filazzo acted with 1, an intent to kill, or 2, an intent to do great bodily harm, or 3, a wanton disregard of the likelihood that death or great bodily harm would result. You must apply the same definitions I have given you, and you must decide whether the state has proven Mr. Filazzo acted with 1 or more of these 3 mental states. At the same time, you may find that the degree of crime is reduced from second-degree murder to voluntary manslaughter if Mr. Filazzo's mental state was influenced by sudden passion or great provocation. The state bears the burden on this issue. If the state has proven the 4 elements that are the same for second-degree murder and for voluntary manslaughter, but if the state has not proven a lack of passion or provocation, then the state has proven voluntary manslaughter but not second-degree murder. In other words, the presence of sudden passion or great provocation can reduce the degree of crime from second-degree murder to voluntary manslaughter. However, if the state has proven the 4 essential elements of voluntary manslaughter, the presence of sudden passion or great provocation does not reduce the degree of crime below the level of voluntary manslaughter. All of the elements of the offense must have been present at the same time. If the state has proven each of the essential elements of voluntary manslaughter beyond a reasonable doubt, then you will be done with your deliberations. You must return a verdict that Mr. Filazzo is guilty of voluntary manslaughter. Presumption of innocence. This is a different take on it. When considering the degree of unlawful killing that might be involved in this case, the presumption of innocence plays 2 roles. First, Mr. Filazzo is presumed to be innocent of any crime. Second, if you find beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Filazzo committed an unlawful killing, then you must give him the benefit of any reasonable doubt in deciding the degree of the offense. In other words, you must apply the presumption of innocence and weigh it against the evidence at each step of your deliberations. Nevertheless, if all of the evidence weighed along with the presumption of innocence convinces you beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Filazzo is guilty of one of the higher degrees of unlawful killing, then you must find him guilty of the highest degree of offense that has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Verdict. Your verdict will be one of the four possible verdicts: not guilty of any crime, 2, guilty of first-degree murder, 3, guilty of second-degree murder, or 4, guilty of voluntary manslaughter. Concluding remarks. Jury deliberations. Your verdict must represent the considered judgment of each juror. To return a verdict of guilty or not guilty, you must all agree. Your verdict must be unanimous. You must consult with one another. You must try to reach an agreement if you can do so without sacrificing your individual judgment. Each of you must decide the case for yourself, but do so only after an impartial consideration of the evidence with your fellow jurors. Do not hesitate to re-examine your views and change your opinion if you are convinced it is wrong. But do not surrender your honest opinion as to the weight or effect of evidence solely because of the opinions of your fellow jurors or for the mere purpose of returning a verdict. If you
And we're back, and we're back, and we are big. We're back, people. I want to stand up for this. We are back, we're back, and we're back. Put myself on mute. Okay. We do have sound here, but not in the court yet. Let's see. Law and Crime normally will give you a note. Let's see. Do they have a note? They don't have a note, so I don't know. I think he's going to get first-degree murder, y'all. They came back very quickly. The verdict clock is only on 4 hours.
We do have it. Tell me when you're on the record. We're back in the matter of State versus Filazzo. All parties are present. We do have a verdict. We'll mark this as court's exhibit 3, and we'll bring in the jury.
It's definitely not going to be self-defense. So I feel pretty confident about that. So he's getting something. Can't see manslaughter either. It's going to have to either be first or second degree murder. I would do a poll, Andre, but y'all could just type it in the chat because I'm on StreamYard and I have to open up a whole nother window and go into this from just a lot to get. Let me see. Yeah, he's cooked for sure. His goose is cooked. It's just so unnecessary, y'all. I mean, not that it's ever necessary, but it's just so unnecessary.
Please be seated. Ms. Reno, I understand the jury has reached a verdict. Is that correct?
We have your own.
And we could state it now. How do you find Mr. Palazzo on the count of first-degree murder, guilty or not guilty? Ms. Jantz, would you like us to poll? the
I
jury?
would, please.
And Mr. Zago, is that your verdict, guilty or not guilty? Ms. Henderson,
We
guilty
can't
or
hear
not
him.
guilty? Ms. Nault, guilty or not guilty? Ms. Francescani, guilty or not guilty?
Yeah,
Mr. Frederickson, guilty or not guilty? Guilty.
there you go.
And Mr. Williams, guilty or not guilty? Guilty. Ms. Major, guilty or not guilty? Mr. Wing, guilty or not guilty? Guilty. Ms. Hammond, guilty or not guilty? Guilty. Mr. Kareem, guilty or not guilty? Guilty. And Ms. Calvis, guilty or not guilty? So says the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your service.
First degree
It's
murder.
clear You were very thoughtful throughout the trial. Really appreciate how you were always on time, you were always listening, taking notes, and really studying the evidence as it was coming in. Really appreciate your time in this case. Thank you. And you're excused with the great thanks of the court.
All right.
Yeah.
So he might get sentenced right now. Let's
Any
see.
requests by the state?
Judge, just obviously that Mr. Filazzo continue to be held without bail.
Judgment of guilt entered at this time.
Yes.
And like the opportunity to file post trial.
Yes, thank you, Judge.
I know what the time limits usually are, but
I don't think he's getting sentenced today.
I do, in light of the holidays coming up, I'd like until January 15th.
Any objection?
No, Judge.
January 15th, any response from the state will give you 3 weeks to respond, if that's all right with you. And so, and we'll set it in sometime in mid-February. So 3 weeks would be about February 3rd.
Just reminding the court of my medical schedule.
We will,
We can deal with it
will.
because there'll be a PSI or so forth.
All right. Anything further from the defense?
No,
Schedule a PSI in this matter?
yes,
We'll schedule a pre-sentence investigation report, and we'll come back on any motions filed and then for sentence.
thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
So he's going to be held in jail, y'all, until next month. The verdict was guilty on first-degree murder. We just couldn't hear the jury that well, but he's found guilty on first-degree murder, but he will not be sentenced until next month, so he'll just be in jail until then. Look how relaxed they're. I guess these guys are behind him. They're like, yeah, we'll make a move, buddy. So that's it, y'all. I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. I'm gonna try to have something of a rest of my day. Y'all, we'll be back on the main channel tomorrow. I do want to get this channel up to 4,000 hours, y'all. And right now we are at about with today, we'll probably be somewhere around 2,200, 2,300 maybe. So in order to get memberships and all that stuff open, we need to get the 4,000 hours. So, we'll just keep grinding it out. We'll keep grinding it out and see what we can get into next. If y'all come across any good trials, if you have anything, even a previous trial or anything you want to watch, let me know. But for now, I'm going to wrap it up. I will talk to y'all mañana. Have a good night. Bye-bye. Or have a good afternoon.